Okay, so we're doing live stream now. And send me the link on your WhatsApp.
Sure, Prabhuji.
We'll start in about a minute. Nareshwar Prabhu. 1 minute.
No problem.
Thank you, Prabhu. I got the link. Nareshwar Prabhu. No problem. All right, so DKG disciples, here's the new link. DKG Sangha. Okay, we can get started now. Thank you, Dhamini Prabhu, and we'll get started again. So, Nareshwar Prabhu, you have the floor again. Sorry about that.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, I was beginning to talk about my first meeting with Tamal Krsna Maharaj, the story leading up to it. So as I mentioned, all the buses were there at Washington, all the Radha Damodar buses were there, and Maharaj must have been there, but I didn't know who was who or anything about what was really going on. But I was doing my thing, and actually asked one sannyasi, Rupanuga, at the time, that I just joined. What's your advice? What should I do? And he told me that, well, you should go to India. I'm just mentioning that because it plays into the story a little later. So from there we went up to New York for the Ratha Yatra. And again, the place was full of sannyasis and devotees, and I had no idea who was who, but it have the service of assisting Bali Madan Prabhu, who was serving the sannyasis. He was responsible for serving the sannyasis, and I was assisting him. So that went on. And again, as I said, I was just a new guy. I didn't really know what was going on. But after that festival, I told them, well, now I'm leaving, I'm going to India. And so they said, oh, Tamal Krsna Maharaj wants to see you. Can you go and see Tamal Krsna Maharaj? By that time, I knew he was like the head of that temple, I guess. So I didn't know what was what. Anyway, I went up to his room, which was, I can't remember the floor, but there was a suite running off the lift foyer, and you go in and there's a corridor, and his room was at the end, and there was another room off to the right, as I recall. And I went in there. It was just after lunchtime, and Maharaj was sitting down at his desk down on the floor, and I sat in front of him, and he started talking to me, and why do you want to go to India? I said, no, I was advised to go to India to get some training, some good training. I just joined. I don't really know anything about anything. And, so I want to understand what's going on. I want to get trained. And he said to me, no, you'll get the best training here. You should stay here and just be here, and you'll get very, very good training in this Krishna consciousness. And he just finished his lunch, you know, and he was kind of actually nodding out, you could say. He was kind of, you know, closed his eyes. So I thought that was like a little strange, but I said, yes, okay, I'll do that. I'll stay here. And actually, he then, a day or so later, he asked me to be his servant, which was kind of a little strange because, you know, I was like a Bhakta Norman, like hardly a month or more, maybe 2 months in the movement, you know, in the association of devotees. I was shaved up and all of that stuff, but it was a little strange. I thought it was a little strange. He wanted me. You know, he was Tamal Krsna Maharaj. He was like one of the Sankirtan generals. You know, I was getting that understanding by that time about, you know, who he was. And so asking me to be his servant, I thought that was a little strange, but, you know, I agreed. And I used to sleep in that little corridor that I mentioned. I used to sleep there. And I think Srila Maharaj was staying in the other room. It's like a guest sannyasi room. He was staying there. So anyway, I don't know if any of you had experience of, you know, you heard something about Maharaj's prasad times, you know, I don't know if any of you had the experience of serving Maharaj a mixed sabji, but picking out only the sabjis that he wanted on his plate. Not just serving the sabji, but picking out, no, just give me this one and this one. And that's what I would do. That's what I had to do. It didn't last very long. He, you know, I took up some other services in the temple, and then he said, "Oh, you know, don't waste your time with me. You go and do the other services that you've been given. You know, you carry on with that." That was my first kind of interaction with him. I did ask him at one point, because I was like a very young devotee, but you know, like practically off the street. But somehow or other, I was in charge of the Mahaprasad. You know, the offerings came off, and I had the responsibility to get them and distribute them and make sure that you know, the sannyasis got their share, etc., etc. And so, you know, lots of devotees would be on my case, you know, wanting to get the prasad. And, you know, I was like a bit kind of rough, you could say, around the edges, still am. Anyway, so I went to Maharaj at one point. I said, look, Maharaj, you know, this is very, I don't know what to do. I'm just a very young devotee, but there's all these, you know, senior men who are like on my case, and, you know, I can't really satisfy them because, you know, so what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to deal with this situation? And he said, look, you know, you have to be respectful to the devotees. You have to be very respectful to devotees, but at the same time, you have to focus on your service. You have to do your service as you understand it, but be respectful. Be, you know, don't be rude or anything like that. So I carried that instruction along with me, you know, throughout my career, if you can call it that. So anyway, that was my first interaction. Those were my first interactions with Tamal Krsna Maharaj. And then after some months, after, you know, by January, I wanted to leave, and they wouldn't let me leave. The Adhikesha was the TP. They said, no, you can't leave. You can't go. I said, well, you know, I want to go to India now. No, you can't go. So actually he left in the middle of the night with one other devotee who was passing through, and I went to India. and then I ended up in Mayapur, and then, the festival was coming and they were all coming. So I was like, oh, Tamal Krishna's Maharaj is going to come, and Adi Keshava, and what am I going to do? They're going to be upset with me. And plus, I was still waiting for initiation, and I assumed that since I'd been working with them, they were going to have to recommend me, even though I was in Mayapur. I was just there for a short time. So when they arrived, I kind of, again, I was in charge of the Mahaprasad. I was the temple. I was that guest house manager of the Lotus building. So I got some of the Mahaprasad and evening offering. Pancharatna knows the evening offering was very special, very special offering, and very sought after. So I got some cakes from that offering, and I went to see Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and and he don't worry about it, it's okay, we understand. And he was very very cool about it. They didn't take it any other way. I guess they expected it. And so then my relationship with him began to, and I took initiation. And, over the years, he became a close friend, but more than that, a mentor, you could say. A mentor. He was my mentor. Someone was mentioning, I think it was it Braj Bihari was mentioning about, his hard side, and how he used to deal with not just his disciples, but others who he was manager. He was a big manager. He was like one of the top leaders of ISKCON. No one can argue that point. One of Srila Prabhupada's generals, you can say. But I never saw that aspect of him personally, even through when I was serving him. And then later on, like, I started to work with him, do service with him in the Mayapur project. He was part of the SMPDC, the development committee, the planning committee, and I was also there on that committee. And then, with the BBT, he was in Hong Kong, China, and I was his boss, so to speak, but not like that. I just let him do whatever he wanted, because he was far more smart, intelligent, and focused on what needed to be done. I didn't need to do anything there, but we would talk. He would call me, or we would meet. I spent time with him many places all over the world, and we would focus on. He would always be focused on the service, what needed to be done, both in Mayapur and in the BBT and other things. So you all know he was very focused person. And as Braj Bihari was mentioning, we miss him. ISKCON misses. I personally miss him, obviously, because he was my close friend and mentor. And I would always, when something was bothering me, or I needed some advice, he would be the person I called. And I don't have that opportunity now, and I wish I did. But also ISKCON itself, I mean, he was very, instrumental in many areas of ISKCON's development, especially book distribution, we could say. So, so, I would sit with him in these different committees, and that original instruction he gave me about, being respectful, because, generally, I'm a junior guy against all these other people who were sitting on the committee, but, you know, respectful, but focused on the service and whatever that was his advice to me. And I always followed that advice, even in relation to him, you know, Prasadam was mentioned as something that was given importance, and that's correct. We would often take prasad together, but he would also, you know, when I'd go to see him in his room, and he hey, what's that on your kurta? You know, maybe I'd have a stain of some tomato sauce or something. You cooked and you didn't invite me. What's going on? You know, this is not good. And so he would get on my case like that, and actually trained one of his cooks, Gopal, on pizza, how to make pizza, because you know, that was one of the things that he liked me to cook for him. The last week when we were together in Mayapur, we would be chanting in his room every day. The room would be packed. Some of you may have been there, I don't know. But I guess that was the kind of start of the Kirtan Mela, so to speak, because before that, and then the temple authorities, they asked him to move it to the temple room. And you know, we needed to do that because there was just too many people who wanted to participate in these wonderful kirtans with the Tamal Krsna Maharaj, and Govinda Maharaj was there, you know, all and it was a really wonderful time. So the last kirtan, when, you know, he was leaving the next day, he was scheduled to leave the next day. After the last kirtan, I went up with him, walked back up to his room with him. I think Ananda Shivapu was there with us, and we was, you know, we were sitting there, and he was very enthused, and he was talking about this kirtan and this activity, and how. And he was like giving us his vision, and you know, he's saying, you know, we can chat, we can make it much better, we can do much more, we can stop chanting at some point, and then have some depiction drama. He said Jai Pataka Maharaj can get up there and do some Chaitanya Leela with other devotees, and he was like trying to enhance the program and come up with ideas of how this hearing and chanting could be enhanced for the benefit of all the devotees. And that was the last discussion that we had. And he went off and took rest, and I left and went off and took rest. And then you know the rest of the story, which was, you know, that was his passing Leela the next day, the next morning, early morning. So yeah, I mean, I remember him very fondly. As I said, I miss him because he influenced so many people, and I was one of those people. Devotees all over the world were influenced by this Vaishnav. I never called him Gurudev, but you know, I have no problem with that, because that's what he was, Gurudev. So thank you for the opportunity to speak a little bit about Tamal Krsna Maharaj and Hare Krishna.
Okay, thank you very much, Nareshwar Prabhu. we always remember how you're very close to Gurudev and how many times we've had association with you. I remember the days when we were bathing in the ocean in Fiji, when you came to Fiji with us.
Yes.
So many wonderful times. Yeah. How much he loved you, and thank you so very much for sharing such a wonderful experience for us all. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Prabhu, for the opportunity. I'm not such a good speaker like the others, but I do appreciate the opportunity.
You did excellently, Prabhu. Thank you so very much. So last week I didn't say welcome to you, Pancharatna Prabhu, because when I did, you had not come on at that time, but now you are. So nice to have you with us again. So His Grace Pancharatna Prabhu joined ISKCON in Toronto, Canada, as a brahmachari in 1970. He went on to serve in ISKCON New York in various capacities until 1976. And and after that, he moved to Sri Mayapur. There he accepted many responsibilities, including building construction and establishing the Bengali language division of the BVT. He met his wife, Aditi Guna Prabhu, in Mayapur and was married there in 1980, raising 4 children with her, mostly in Mayapur. He currently resides in Mayapur and serves the GBC in various capacities, primarily through ISKCON Online. He also serves ISKCON Sri Mayapur as a member of the Mayapur Community Sevaks team. Welcome, Pancharatna Prabhu. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you so very much.
I hope this works. My computer is telling me I've got low system resources. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you very clearly. We can see you.
So, yeah. Well, I apologize in advance if there's some system problems. Hopefully it'll be okay.
Thank you.
Jai Tamal Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtai Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami. Stay Saraswati Gauravani Pachami Social Sanibadi question. I feel a little, awkward in the sense that what I'm feeling is that I miss so many opportunities when I hear from Nareshwar Prabhu and when I hear from Atul Krishna Prabhu, and how much association and you could say mercy that they received. I had various interactions with Maharaj through the years, but never got that close. We were certainly friends, but we always were sort of more the ships passing in the night. I was in doubt. Well, my first experiences with Maharaj were in New York when he came and joined the Radha Damodar party. I related this on the Tirubhav festival, how I went to observe his strategy, his style of how he was bringing people into the movement so effectively. And he was using a sales technique, which is the get to yes technique, where you pose questions and you pose different situations where the potential customer can only say yes. And so they're saying yes to this, yes to this, yes to this. And then finally, when you give the closing ask, which in his case was, give up everything, drop everything you're doing, leave college, stop doing, just completely change your life now, today. You're with us, okay? And there were people ready to do that who did it. I tried it out on a few people and I didn't have that much success, but he was able to get people to yes in that way, and they joined the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. I continued some interactions with Maharaj in New York. Again, it was this was before you came, Nareshwar, because I had left in 76 to Mayapur. But when we moved into 55th Street, Maharaj came with a party. And we had some negotiations on who would stay, because he had a reputation for, or the Radha Damodar party, I should say, had a reputation of coming in with their buses, having fantastic kirtans and so on. And then the temple president is discovering the next morning that the bus is gone and 3 or 4 brahmacharis are gone too, because they just kind of up and left. So somehow or other, we made some arrangement that rather than surprise exits, we would trade. And he had people that needed to be in a temple, and we had people who could go out, and we made trades like that. So I was there. Then in Mayapur and variety of interactions, mostly by Bhakti Charu Maharaja, that really gave me an insight into his prasad style of being very particular about prasad. But I think what I wanted to talk about is the uniqueness of his personality and the lesson that I aspire to learn from him. Maharaj was, throughout his life, from what I have observed, he was always seeking the best, aspiring for the best, and willing to change. He was willing to move as needed to get to the vision that he had. And he was willing to give up old ways of thinking and accept new ways of thinking as his maturity in Krishna consciousness went forward. He truly practiced that system of working with mental models, being able to give up one and take on another. An example of this was has struck me is that in 1976, he arrived in Mayapur with Radha Damodar party. By that time, I was involved in management in Mayapur, and he basically took over the 3rd floor of the Lotus building with his Sankirtan party. And just prior to this, when I arrived in Mayapur, I got a sort of a hint of what was coming. I entered Srila Prabhupada's room. I was called there to give a report. We had just moved into 55th Street, and I was giving some sort of report. And there was also an issue that the Dallas Gurukula had been closed. And apparently Jagadish had not informed Srila Prabhupada. I mean, there was an emergency. The state was going to close it. But anyway, and I remember entering that room and seeing Srila Prabhupada sitting with a row of sannyasis in a circle towards the end of the room. And the mood, when I gave my report, I could see that there was this mood of anti-grihasta, basically. And if you look at the GBC resolutions of 1976, you'll see a whole series of resolutions that basically were telling, that the sannyasis and brahmacharis should take over the temples and the grihastas should go and live outside, etc. It's interesting to note in those days, the resolutions were noted by day. So you'll see the resolutions of, March, whatever it was, and then the next day and the next day. And then you'll see resolution of such and such is rescinded. Because there was, I don't want to get into the whole story of that, but there was a real pushback. And I could see, at that time and in the future, you could see how Maharaj was able to just change. Okay, that didn't work. That was not right. And the evidence of that came later when in a deep way, when I saw him in Murwillumbah. He was visiting. I happened to be there, and he happened to be there. And how he was interacting with the Grihastas then, talking about how important it was for them to have affection in their lives, to love each other, and just really extolling how to make Grihastha ashram work. So in this way, I could see how he was able to he wasn't attached to, I mean, he could be stubborn about certain things, about his tastes in things. But he was not stubborn for the sake of, ego in any way. That was my perception. He was open, always open to learning, developing. And when some good idea came, he would grab onto it. And then he would develop it further, like Narashar was talking about, the kirtan that he got going in his rooms, and then how he was thinking about how could this expand. Atul was talking about the Navaditam Parikrama and how he got people to go on that. He was just the pioneer in so many different ways. And Atul was mentioning that with such a ability to think, to explore, to create, to expand the movement. What fortune we would have today if Srila Prabhupada had kept him here instead of taking him wherever his service was needed at the time. But we can learn, and I hope to learn from the interactions I had, and continue and hope that in my own life, I can also have that spirit of seeking new ways to spread Krishna consciousness, willing to give up old things that are not working to change, or that need to be changed. I mean, we can see, there were instances where he was exploring, and I don't think we need to get into that, but other ways to developing Krishna consciousness. And when that started to prove itself to be problematic for the society, he was ready to just change and go a different way. He then started to explore academia, and that led him to from what I've understood, to a whole new dimension of understanding Srila Prabhupada, by now having to understand Srila Prabhupada from an academic perspective, opened up new doors. So he was a true pioneer, a true innovator, and such a wonderful person. And we miss him. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pancharatna Prabhu. Thank you so very much. It was so nice to come on and say those wonderful words. I'm going to open it up to the floor for everybody now. Anybody would like to unmute and ask any question of the panel? You're welcome to do so at this time. Please unmute yourself and ask, or if you'd like somebody to share something based on something that somebody might have said, one of the devotees might have said, please go ahead. Well,
can I just say one thing an important point which I forgot to mention? Is that okay, Nityananda?
yes, yes, please, Prabhu, go ahead.
I was just remembering Maharaj was very, very good or very, very, yeah, very, very good at association, how to associate with other devotees. I mean, he was very, very attached to having that association with many, many devotees. And you know, he part of association, as Rupa Goswami mentions, is dadati pratigrinati guyam apkyati prachati. That means, you know, asking, hearing confidentially and asking confidentially. And one thing that I remembered was that, you know, we know how, everyone knows how astute and how smart and how, you know, elevated a Vaishnava he was. But nevertheless, he would still sit with you or sit with me. And I know he did that with many, many devotees. And then he would say, and then he would start to say, well, you know, this is what I'm planning to do. What do you think? What do you think? So, you know, why are you asking me? You're Tamal Krsna. Why are you asking me? No, I want to know what you think about it. This is what I'm planning to do. What do you think? I want to know what you think. So that's a very important aspect of devotional life. And even though he was such an elevated person, you know, super manager, whatever area you want to talk about, still he would engage in that activity, which I think is very important for all devotees, and especially leaders like him. He was exemplary in that way.
Yes. Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much. Yes, he left us an example for us to follow in the same way. Always be considerate of others' understanding so that we can broaden our understanding and do something that truly pleases Krishna, truly pleases Srila Prabhupada, as opposed to, you know, thinking that we got it and just race ahead. Thank you. Yes. Anybody else would like to say something? Really sorry for the interruption that happened in the middle. We got it better together this time. Now we know what this issue was. And of course, tomorrow we have the Radha Damodar Party Sankirtan team coming on, some members of the team coming on and speaking. That's at 7 o'clock Central Time, US. It's now 8:35 here in Dallas. So it's an hour and a half prior to this tomorrow that we're going to be hearing from four wonderful devotees, Kavichandra Maharaj, we have Brahma Prabhu, and then Sunanda Prabhu and Dasrat Sutta Prabhu. They're coming on just for your edification, for those of you who are on, just as a reminder. So any last points we make? Anybody want to say something before we close this program for today? Anybody at all? Again, I want to thank Pancharatna Prabhu, also Naresh Prabhu, and Atul Krishna Prabhu. And of course, Braj Bihari Prabhu, I think, is not on right now, but if he was, thank you all so very much. These memories are precious for us, they're priceless. They're all recorded and they'll be on our YouTube channels for posterity for people to see. And a lot of people do watch these programs and comment about them. And the numbers that come on the Zoom program are not indicative of how many people are impacted by this, what to speak of those in the future who will be looking back and seeing what happened in the Hare Krishna movement in the earlier days. And in some ways, we are still in our formative years. So many wonderful programs are developing, so many wonderful things are happening. New generations are coming forth and preaching and reaching out to the public. And now, of course, we've reached unprecedented numbers of people compared to when we started this movement in the 60s and 70s when Srila Prabhupada was here. And all thanks to you all, who were in the beginning of this program, right from the beginning, and sharing with us and showing how real this program is and what the great achievements and challenges were, and the difficulties that we faced and the great ecstasies that we achieved on the path to Krishna consciousness for the rest of the world. Thank you all again so very much. And
Prabhuji.
Call it day for day. Yes, Damian Prabhu.
Prabhuji, do you want to announce tomorrow's program?
Yes, I announced it. I only announced it.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Prabhuji, I missed it.
No problem. Okay, thank you all very much. Vanchikalpa, Tiruvascha, Kripasindhubhya Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhya, Vaishnavebhya, Namo Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya, Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale, Shrimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanami. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachari Nirvishesh Srinivadi. Pastyati Deshtaya. Jai Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.